अस्माल्लोकादुपरते मयि ज्ञानं मदाश्रयम् अर्हत्युद्धव एवाद्धा सम्प्रत्यात्मवतां वरः. Now I shall leave the vision of this mundane world, and I see that Uddhava, the foremost of my devotees, is the only one who can be directly entrusted with knowledge about me. Notice this. Samprati Atmavatam Varaha. At the present moment, he is the foremost of the devotees, of the Atmavan, of the Atma. मयि उपरते सति ज्ञानम् अर्हति ज्ञानयोग्यः भवति. उद्धवः अर्हति. Uddhava is fit for knowledge about me. Aham Shri Krishna Rupa Ashpraya Yasya iti Jnanasyapi Vaishishtyam Uktam. This knowledge is not ordinary knowledge, it is Madashrayam. Jnanam Madashrayam. And here Madashraya specifically means concerning myself in the form of Sri Krishna. Atma ahameva parama purusharthatvena vidyate yesham tesham atmavatam shreshtaha. Atmavatam shreshtaha. The foremost of the Atmavan or Atmavat here means those who consider myself to be the highest goal of their lives. In other words, those who are my devotees. Asmat prapanchikat lokat uparate swiya rupa guna lila madhurya vrishtibhyah virate sati अहमेव आश्रय यस्य तत् अहम यत् जानामि तत् उद्धव अपि ज्ञातुम् अर्हति इति अर्थः. The meaning is this: when I desist from this material world, which means when the showers of the sweetness of my form, my qualities, and my pastimes stop, then Uddhava also deserves to know whatever I know, because he has taken shelter of me. Mam titrikshun yanmukhat jnanam jigyasun badrikashrama vasinaha munin mat pratimurtitvena jnanam grahayitumiti bhavaha. The sages who reside at Badrikashrama, they are inquisitive to know knowledge from my mouth. They desire to see me. In order to have an arrangement to give that knowledge to them as my very representative, Atma ahameva swamitvena varte yesham tesham atmavatam varah shreshtaha. I am keeping this Uddhava, that is implied in the later verse. Here, he is interpreting Atmavatam Varaha, Atmavatam, to mean the best of those who have accepted myself as their master. Because Vat indicates possession also. Jnanam Madashrayam is significant in this verse. Transcendental knowledge has three departmental divisions, namely knowledge of impersonal Brahman, knowledge of the all-pervading Supersoul, and knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Out of the three, transcendental knowledge of the personality of Godhead has special significance and is known as Bhagavad Tattva Jnana. Specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. This specific knowledge is realized by pure devotional service and no other means. The Bhagavad Gita 18.55 confirms this. Bhakti amam abhijanati yavanyashasmi tattvataha. Only persons engaged in devotional service can factually know the transcendental position of the Lord. Uddhava was considered to be the best amongst all devotees of that time. And therefore, by the Lord's grace, he received direct instruction from the Lord so that people might take advantage of Uddhava's knowledge. After the disappearance of the Lord from the vision of the world, this is one of the reasons why Uddhava was advised to go to Badrikashrama, where the Lord is personally represented by the Naranarayana deity. One who is transcendently advanced can gain direct inspiration from the temple deity, and thus a devotee of the Lord always takes shelter of a recognized temple of the Lord in order to make tangible advancement in transcendental knowledge by the grace of the Lord. 31. Nodhavonvapi manyuno yad gunairnarjitah prabhu ato mad vayunam lokam grahayan nihatishtatu न उद्धवः अणु अपि मत्न्यूनः यत् गुणैः न अर्दितः प्रभुः अतः मत् वयुनं लोकं ग्राहयन् इह तिष्ठतु. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way because he is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he may remain in this world in order to disseminate specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Swami. Mattah sakashat ishyatapi nyunah na bhavati. He is not even slightly inferior to me. यदि अस्मात् गुणैः विषयैः न क्षोभितः मद्वयुनं मद्विषयं not yadi, it's actually yad space. Yad means yasmat. गुणैः अर्थात विषयैः न क्षोभितः मद्वयुनं मद्विषयं ज्ञानं लोकस्य उपदिश्यन्. Because he is not affected by the sense objects. So therefore he may remain in this world to distribute knowledge concerning me. Something in the chat box. One who is transcendently advanced can gain direct inspiration from the temple deity. Yes, one who is transcendently advanced can be directed by the temple deity directly, personally. Kramasandarbha. Yad yasmat atishayena mad अन्यूनत्वात् हेतोः गुणैः सत्व आदिभिः न अर्दितः न पीडितः गुण अतीतः इति अर्थः. Because he is absolutely not inferior to me, so he is not tormented by sattva-guna, raja-guna, tama-guna. In other words, he is beyond the three modes of material nature. Yataha Prabhu sarva artha samartha cha. Because he is also Prabhu, he is also capable. Prabhu in Sanskrit also means capable. He is capable about every subject. He is capable regarding everything. Mad vayunam, mad vishayam jnanam grahayanniti padrikashrama gatam tam tan mahamunin prati api ityartha. In other words, he is even capable to help the great sages in Badrikashrama to accept, to make them understand knowledge pertaining to me. Tadidam grahanam tyaktam akathayishyamanamapi gyayameva. Even though this detail will not be described, it is evident that this did take place. Bhagavad Sankalpasya anyathatvadyasambhava. Because the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be undone, etc. There's no possibility of it. Yathoktam amoghavanchitaha. As already noted in 3.4.29, the Supreme Lord's desires are unfailing. Chakravarti. Swapratimurtitve uddhavasya yogyatamaha anu api. Here, he speaks about Uddhava's eligibility as his Pratimurti, as his personal representative. Pratimurti is a word stronger than Pratinidhi. Pratinidhi means representation. Pratimurti is more than a representation. It's like a reflection. It is like I cannot think of a proper English word to convey the sense of Pratimurti. Extension, maybe. I don't know how to express it. Murti means form. Pratimurti means identical form, facsimile form. मत्तः सकाशात् ईषदपि न न्यूनः यत् यस्मात् गुणैः सत्त्वादिभिः ननु जगति अस्मिन् गुणातीताः परः सहस्राः जीवन्मुक्ताः गुणैः अनर्दिताः एव सन्ति. Objection. In this world, there are more than 1,000 gunatitas, jivan beyond persons beyond the modes of material nature, who are not tormented by the gunas. Tena kim tesham bhagavat samyam. So then, is it that they are equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Satyam, that's true. Tarhi evam yakshayam. Then it should be described in the following manner. It can be described in the following manner. It can be explained in the following manner. Gunaihi अप्राकृतैः बलबुद्धिज्ञान वैराग्य आदिभिः न अर्जितः तेषां वेगधारण सामर्थ्यमेव तैः अनर्दित्वम् अत्र ज्ञेयं यथा कामादिवेगधारण सामर्थ्यमेव कामादि अनर्दित्वम् उच्यते. Here gunaihi can be understood to be aprakritaihi, non-material qualities such as spiritual strength, spiritual intelligence, spiritual knowledge, uh, renunciation, detachment caused by spiritual experience, and so on. So he was not disturbed by that in the sense that he was fully capable of withholding their urges, just as the person who is capable of withholding the urges of lust and so on is said to be not disturbed by lust and so on. Uddhava hi adhiratha yuthapeshu mukhya iti uchyate. Uddhava has been stated to be the greatest of the commanders. तदपि न क्वापि तादृशस्य अप्राकृतस्य बलस्य आविष्कारः कृत इति बलवेगधारणं. Still, at no point in time did he reveal his transcendental strength. Iti balavega dharana. This is the meaning of him controlling the urge of his strength. Evam buddhyadinam api vega dharanam gyeyam. Etadeva asadharanyam. Similarly, it is understood that he controlled the urge of his intelligence and so on. This that point, that description already came. We saw that. Nevertheless, at no point in time did he ever manifest his military strength and all these things. He always kept a low profile. Always kept a low profile, even though he was absolutely capable. He didn't manifest his bala samarthya, buddhi samarthya, aprakrita bala samarthya, aprakrita buddhi samarthya, aprakrita jnana samarthya, and so on. Nothing, he never demonstrated, never revealed his capacity. Now, Krishna knows all these things very well. Prabhu ahamiva vashikritamaya ityartha. And on top of it, he is Prabhu. He is a master, meaning that he has brought Maya under his control, like me. Madvayanam, Madhyanam. And he has knowledge about me. The specific qualification for becoming the representative of the Lord is to be unaffected by the material modes of nature. The highest qualification of a person in the material world is to be a Brahmana. But since a Brahmana is in the mode of goodness, wait, let me do one thing. Or in case it will help in the bandwidth. The highest qualification of a person in the material world is to be a Brahmana. But since a Brahmana is in the mode of goodness, to be a Brahmana is not sufficient for becoming a representative of the Lord. One has to transcend the mode of goodness also and be situated in unalloyed goodness, unaffected, unaffected by any of the qualities of material nature. This stage of transcendental qualification is called Shuddha Sattva or Vasudeva, and in this stage, the signs of God can be realized. As the Lord is not affected by the modes of material nature, so a pure devotee of the Lord is also not affected by the modes of nature. That is the primary qualification for being one with the Lord. A person who is able to attain this transcendental qualification is called a Jivan Mukta or a liberated soul, even though apparently in material conditions. This liberation is achieved by one who constantly engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.187, it is stated, Ihayasya Harer Dasye Karmana Manasagira Nikhilaswapyavasthasu Jivan Muktasa Uchyate. Anyone who, by his actions, mind, and words, lives only for the transcendental loving service of the Lord is certainly a liberated soul, even though he may appear to be in a condition of material existence. Uddhava was in such a transcendental position, and thus he was selected to be the factual representative of the Lord in the Lord's bodily absence from the vision of the world. Such a devotee of the Lord is never affected by material strength, intelligence, or even renunciation. Such a devotee of the Lord can withstand all onslaughts of the material nature, and therefore he is known as Goswami. Only such Goswamis can penetrate the mysteries of the Lord's transcendental loving relationships. There's a question in the chat box. Why it happens coming to mode of goodness also difficult? I really cannot understand this. Please speak to me what this means.
Through coming to the mode of goodness means achieving the qualities samodama tapa saucham. This
Okay.
kind of
Yeah, you have to speak. Yes, it is kind of what?
it is kind of difficult.
It is kind of difficult. Correct. That's correct. So
how to make it easy?
How to make it easy? No, spiritual realization is difficult. So what is the issue with that?
No, coming to the mode of goodness is becoming difficult. Realization is far away.
Yes. So what exactly is the issue?
So how can I come to mode of goodness?
How we can come to mode? We have to follow Upadeshamrita, to follow the instructions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It is difficult. Bhakti Yoga is difficult. Of course, it's difficult. If Jnana Yoga is difficult, more difficult than Karma Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga is more difficult than Jnana Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is obviously difficult, more difficult. If you avoid all the offenses, then it appears to be easier. That's all. If one avoids the offenses, then it becomes easier. Otherwise, if you're just normal people, then obviously it's difficult. It's a fact. It is simple. It is not. It's not easy.
What are the exact offenses that we do generally that stops our advancement? We are trying to follow regulated reference goals and avoiding.
There are 10 offenses elaborately described in Harinam Chintamani. So at some point, you just go through it. And you'll easily understand which ones you're doing, which ones you're not doing. That's all.
Yes.
Vijay, Prabhu, I had one more question.
Okay.
In the last line of the purport, it's written, such a devotee which stands. Oh, no, just before that, such a devotee is not affected by material strength, intelligence, or even renunciation. So, how a devotee is affected by material intelligence or renunciation? Means these seems favorable quality like renunciation.
Yeah, but we become attached to all these things and we become proud of these things, no?
Okay. Okay. Okay, bro.
But those who are transcendental devotees, they don't have all these kind of issues.
Yes, bro.
You can see the description of the Uttama Vaishnava in the 11th canto. It's elaborately described. Okay,
Okay, bro.
32. Okay. एवं त्रिलोक गुरुणा संदिष्ट शब्दयोनिना बदर्याश्रमम आसाद्य हरिमीजे समाधिना. Shukadeva Goswami informed the king that Uddhava, being thus instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all Vedic knowledge and the spiritual master of the three worlds, reached the pilgrimage site of Badrikashrama and engaged himself there in trance to satisfy the Lord. एवं अनेन अभिप्रायेण शब्दयोनिना वेदकर्त्रा ईजे पूजयामास. So he engaged himself there in trance to satisfy the Lord. बदरी आश्रमं प्रति गमनाय भगवदादेशः अयम् श्री भगवद विहारमये अस्मिन् देशे तेन स्थातुम् अशक्यत्वात् इति अभिप्रायः. समाधिना अनन्य मनोवृत्त्या ईजे साक्षादिव शिष्ये वे. So, because it was order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it was not possible for him to stay in a place where Sri Bhagavan was engaging in his pastimes. So, with a mind absolutely fixed on the Supreme Lord, he served him within his heart as if he was personally serving him. Taditam tu Maitreya Sahita Taya. What is this? Sankshepa. It looks like a typing mistake. Sankshepena tat grahananantaram eva gyeyam iti tasya dhairya karanam darshitam. So because he was with Maitreya and some instruction was given along with him, therefore he was capable of uh, being sober. Chakravarti Thakur. एवं अनेन प्रकारेण त्रिलोकस्थानां गुणा केषांचित् अवशिष्टानां बद्रिकाश्रम वासिनाम् उद्धवद्वारापि गुणा इत्यर्थः. So in this manner, the guru of the three worlds, that is Lord Krishna, through Uddhava, he sent a message. Sandishta means sent a message in this case to some of those who are remaining as residents of Badrikashrama. Shrutat Devadi Milanartham, Banadi Asura Jayartham, Parijata Adi Nayanartham, Devaki Putradi Anayanartham Cha, Prayaha, Mithiladi Samasta Bhutala Swarga Vaikuntha Sutala Adin Gachata, Swadarshanena, स्वश्रीमुख ज्ञान उपदेशेन च तत्रत्यान् कृतार्थयति अपि भगवता बद्रिकाश्रम अनागमनात् तत्र तत्रत्य ऋषिजनानाम् अपि उत्कण्ठाम् अनुस्मृत्य तत्र उद्धवः प्रस्थापितः क्वचित् कल्पे बद्रिकाश्रमः अपि प्रेषितः. Okay. The Supreme Lord, in order to meet Shrutadeva and others, in order to win or conquer over Bana and other asuras, in order to bring Parijata, in order to bring the sons of Devaki and so on, almost all the time, the Supreme Lord had gone, not all the time, he had almost gone to all the places, such as Mithila and other and all the other places in Bhuloka, Bhutala, the surface of the earth, Swarga, Vaikuntha, Sutala, and so on. And by a sight of him and through knowledge directly coming from his own mouth, he had made the residents of those places successful. Still, he remembered the anxiousness of the rishis staying at Badrikashrama. Now, the Supreme Personality of Godhead did not go to Badrikashram. Therefore, he sent Uddhava. In some kalpas, uh, he was sent there. It's not clear to me what, or maybe something is wrong with the text, or maybe something is wrong. Kvachit kalpe. Imam sandesham nara narayanaabhyam dehi iti sandeshe vishikritah iti artha. Sandishtaha. He sent a message. He specifically told him, give this message to Naranarayana. Sacha na uddhavaha anu api iti padyameva shabdayoninam shabdanam veda lakshananam api yonihi utpattihi yataha iti vedeshu api anupalabhya jnanam bhagavan janati iti dhvanihi. In while saying that, okay, he had mentioned that Uddhava is not even slightly lesser than me. And it was also noted that um, he is the source of all knowledge, all Vedic knowledge. And it is pointed out that because he's a source of the sounds characterized as the Vedas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead knows things in the Vedas which is beyond the reach of others. Tacha udhavenyastam iti anudhvani. So that was hinted. And it is further hinted that that knowledge is given to Uddhava. Uddhavamukhan Naranarayanau Taddeva Prapsyate iti Pratyanudhvani. And a further subsequent hint is that through Uddhava, that information will reach Naranarayana. Sandesha Patricha Swasti, and the letter of message is as follows. Swasti Shriman Naranarayana Prati Vigyaparam Chaidam. Auspiciousness to Sriman Naranarayana. And here is a submission to them. Sapada Shatavarsha Paryanta Paryanta eva mat prakata prakasha gata leela bhavetan maryadacha. It is 125 years have passed since my direct revelation of pastimes, and that limit has also been reached. Samprati Vritta इति द्वारकायां स परिकरेण मया अन्तर्धीयते प्रभासं च गत्वा अवतारितान् देवादीन् आधिकारिकभक्तान् प्रति स्व आस्पदेषु प्रस्थाप्य ब्रह्म प्रार्थितेन एकेन अंशेन वैकुण्ठे स अर्जुनेन अंशेन अलक्षितं युष्मत्पदे च गम्यते. Right now, I am disappearing along with my associates in Dwaraka. After reaching Prabhasa, the devas who had devas and others who had incarnated, that means the devotees who were in official posts in cosmic management, after sending them to their respective places, in one form, having gone to Vaikuntha on the prayer of Brahma, and in another, in one amsha actually, and in another amsha, along with Arjuna, invisibly, an amsha of mine and Arjuna has been sent to your place. किंच मत्पूर्णस्वरूप दर्शनस्य उत्कण्ठानां युष्माकं कृते मत्प्रियपार्षद मुख्ये अस्मिन् उद्धवे स्वसारूप्य साद्गुण्ये अर्पिते. For your sake, who are very anxious to see my complete personality, my sarupya and my sadgunya. Sarupya means a form resembling mine. Sadgunya means my excellent character has been deposited in this Uddhava, who is the chief of my beloved associates. Yataha, because na Uddhava annuapi manyunaha yad gunaihi na ardhita prabhu ato madvayanam lokam grahayan nihatishtatu ityesha. Because Uddhava is not even slightly inferior to me, and he is not tormented by the qualities, and he is fully capable. Therefore, let him remain here and help the world accept my knowledge. This was the letter. Iha Badrikashrami, which was sent to Badrikashram. That's the word Iha. There's the word Iha here. This will come in the next verse. And you will see. Let me go through this. Lord Shri Krishna is factually the spiritual master of the three worlds, and he is the original source of all Vedic knowledge. It is very difficult, however, to understand the personal feature of the absolute truth even from the Vedas. His personal instructions are needed in order to understand the personality of Godhead as the supreme absolute truth. The Bhagavad Gita is the evidence of such transcendental knowledge in gist. One cannot know the Supreme Lord unless one is graced by the Lord himself. Lord Krishna exhibited his specific mercy towards Arjuna and Uddhava while he was in the material world. Undoubtedly, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra just to encourage Arjuna to fight. And yet, to complete the transcendental knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord instructed Uddhava. The Lord wanted Uddhava to fulfill the Lord's mission and disseminate knowledge which he had not spoken even in the Bhagavad Gita. Persons who are attached to the words of the Vedas may also know from this verse that the Lord is the source of all Vedic knowledge. One who is unable to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by going through the pages of the Vedas may take shelter of one of the Lord's devotees, such as Uddhava, in order to advance further in knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahma Samhita says it is very difficult to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the Vedas, but that he is easily understood from a pure devotee like Uddhava. The Lord, taking mercy on the great sages who lived at Badrikashrama, authorized Uddhava to speak on his behalf. Unless one has such authorization, one cannot understand or preach the devotional service of the Lord. Okay, that's a question here.
Prabhuji, in last verse, when you mentioned that qualification to be Lord's representative is Gunatit. And then there was a question, I think, in the commentary only, that are all Gunatits, do they represent Lord? So was the answer yes, that all the Gunatits represent Lord? I was a
No,
bit confused.
all the Gunatis obviously do not represent the Lord, because there are certain aspects of the Lord's knowledge which they do not know. One may just have impersonal realization. He may not have personal realization. Even if he has personal realization, he may not realize the Swayam Bhagavan feature of the Lord. Like this, there are many uh, considerations of gradations of knowledge, understanding, and realization of the Supreme Personality of God.
So this being a Gunatit is just one of the
It is
qualifications.
necessary but not sufficient.
Okay, bro. Thank you, bro.
While present on this earth, the Lord executed many uncommon activities, even traveling in space down to bring down the Parijata from heaven and recovering the son of his teacher, Sandipani Muni, from the regions of death. Uddhava was certainly informed of the conditions of life on other planets, and all the sages were anxious to know of them, just as we are anxious to know about the planets in space. Uddhava was particularly deputed to carry messages to Vadrikashrama, not only to the sages of that place of pilgrimage, but also to the Naranarayana deities. Such messages must have been more confidential than the knowledge described in the pages of the Vedas. The Lord is undoubtedly the source of all knowledge, and the messages dispatched through Uddhava to Naranarayana and other sages were also part of the Vedic knowledge. But those messages were more confidential and could be sent and understood only through such a pure devotee as Uddhava. Since such confidential knowledge was known only to the Lord and Uddhava, it is said that Uddhava was as good as the Lord himself. Every living entity can, like Uddhava, also become a confidential messenger on the same level as the Lord, provided he becomes confidential himself by dint of loving devotional service. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that such confidential knowledge is entrusted only to pure devotees like Uddhava and Arjuna, and that one has to learn the mystery through them and not otherwise. One cannot understand the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam without the help of such confidential devotees of the Lord. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, those confidential messages must have concerned the mystery of the Lord's departure and the annihilation of his dynasty after the end of his appearance in the mundane world for 100 years. Everyone must have been very anxious to know about the mystery of the annihilation of the other dynasty. And that message must have been explained by the Lord to Uddhava and dispatched to Badrikashrama for the information of Naranarayana and other pure devotees of the Lord. 33. विद्रोप्युद्धवा श्रुत्वा कृष्णस्य परमात्मनः क्रीडयोपात्तदेहस्य कर्माणि श्लाघितानि च. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the super soul, in the mortal world, which is a subject matter sought after with great perseverance by the great sages. Okay, so 3 verses together form a sentence here. Let me read out the purport then here. The subject matter of the appearance and disappearance of the super soul Lord Shri Krishna is a mystery even for the great sages. The word Paramatmanaha is significant in this verse. An ordinary living being is generally called the Atma. But Lord Krishna is never an ordinary living being because he is the Paramatma, the super soul. Yet his appearance as one of the human beings and his disappearance again from the mortal world are subject matters for the research workers who execute research work with great perseverance. Such subject matters are certainly of increasing interest because the researchers have to search out the transcendental abode of the Lord, which he enters after finishing his pastimes in the mortal world. But even the great sages have no information that beyond the material sky is the spiritual sky where Sri Krishna eternally resides with his associates, although at the same time he exhibits his pastimes in the mortal world in all the universes one after another. This fact is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 5.37. Goloka eva nivasatyakhlatma bhutaha. The Lord by his inconceivable potency resides in his eternal abode Goloka, yet at the same time, As a super soul, he is present everywhere in both the spiritual and material skies by his multi varieties of manifestation. Therefore, his appearance and disappearance are simultaneously going on, and no one can say definitely which of them is the beginning and which is the end. His eternal pastimes have no beginning and or end, and one has to learn of them from the pure devotee only and not waste valuable time in so-called research work. 34 देहन्यासं च तस्यैवं धीराणां धैर्यवर्धनम् अन्येषां दुष्करतरं पशूनां विक्लवात्मनां. The Lord's glorious acts and his acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than his devotees to understand. And for the beasts, they are simply a mental disturbance. Okay. The question here. Wait 1 minute. I did something wrong. Okay, you should be able to speak now.
Prabhuji, these researchers indicate mental speculators only.
There's mental speculation, there's also philosophical speculation. In philosophical speculation, you accept the authority of the Vedas, etc. Still, you research and try to understand using the power of your intelligence because there's no other way.
So it's allowed for us.
It is allowed for sadhakas. Philosophical research is, that's Prabhupada calls it philosophical speculation. But it is not sufficient also. That is also there.
So this waste of time which was written, it's meant for both mental and philosophical.
For those who are capable of directly accepting the process by which they can attain full realization, it is a waste of time. Okay. The transcendental forms and pastimes of the Lord, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, are difficult subject matters for those who are not devotees to understand. The Lord never reveals himself to persons like the Gyanis and Yogis. And there are others who, because of their envying the Lord from the bottom of their hearts, are classified amongst the beasts. And for such envious beasts, the subject matter of the Lord's appearance and disappearance is simply a mental disturbance. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.15, the miscreants who are simply concerned with material enjoyment, who work very hard like beasts of burden, can hardly know the personality of God at any stage due to asurika bhava, or a spirit of revolt against the Supreme Lord. The transcendental bodily expansions manifested by the Lord for his pastimes in the mortal world and the appearance and disappearance of such transcendental expansions are difficult subject matters, and those who are not devotees are advised not to discuss the Lord's appearance and disappearance, lest they commit further offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. The more they discuss the transcendental appearance and disappearance of the Lord in the Asuric spirit, the more they enter into the darkest region of hell, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 16.20. Anyone who is against the transcendental loving service of the Lord is more or less a beastly creature, as confirmed in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam 35. Atmanam च कुरुश्रेष्ठ कृष्णेनम मनसेक्षितम ध्यायन् गते भागवते रुरोध प्रेम विह्वलः. Understanding that he was remembered by Lord Krishna while quitting this world, Vidura began to cry loudly, overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love. Anyesham pashutulyanam viklava atmanam adhira chittanam manasa ikshitam chintikam. Vidura iti trikam. These three verses constitute a single vakya sentence. Upadanam atra prakatanam prapanchika bhakta samipa anayanarthatvat. The help that the Supreme Lord is performing, the help that is rendering, is that he has manifested himself in order to bring devotees in material existence to him. देहन्यासम् अपरकट लीला अवकाशे धाम्नि स्वविग्रहस्य विन्यासं प्रवेशनम् इति अर्थः। धीराणां तस्मिन् लुप्तचित्तानां तद् रूपत्वेन एव तत् अवस्थाननिर्णयान् धैर्यवर्धनम्। The devotees of the Lord become peaceful about the disappearance of the Lord when they ascertain that the Supreme Lord in his original form is present in his original status. Now, अन्येषां तत् विपरीतबुद्धीनां तत्त्व अज्ञानात् दुर्विभाव्यम् इत्यर्थः. But for others who have perverted intelligence, the opposite type of intelligence, because they do not know the factual truth, the disappearance pastime is beyond the reach of their comprehension. क्रीडयैव कर्त्र्या उप आधिक्येन अत्तः गृहीतः देहः यस्य तस्य लीलाशक्तेः अधीनः एव सः तस्य देहः तया एव शक्त्या आविर्भाव्यते च अंतर्धाप्यते च इति भावः. Through his pastimes, the Supreme Lord, under the control of his Leela Shakti, his pastime potency, his body, by means of that very potency, is revealed and concealed. This is what is implied here. तथा एवं अनेन प्रकारेण तस्य धीराणां यादवादीनामपि देहानां न्यासं द्वारकायाम् अप्रकट प्रकाशे अर्पणम्. So it is in this manner that the sober Yadavas and others bodies are being placed in the unmanifest realm of Dwaraka. प्रभासे च पुनः त्यागं श्रुत्वा कीदृशं धैर्यवर्धनं तथा श्रुत्वैव विदुरः हृदि धैर्यम् अबध्नात् इत्यर्थः. How is it that when he heard that the Lord had left them at Prabhasa, just by hearing that, how else could he have increased his dhairya, his sober nature? Yadva tadapi dhairya chhedanam vardat chhedane. Dhairya vardhanam can also indicate that his Vidura's sober nature was split, was destroyed, was cut. पुनः कीदृशम् अन्येषाम् अभक्तानां योगिनामपि अतिशयेन दुष्करम्. These topics are very difficult to be understood by others, meaning the non-devotees. That means even the yogis. एकत्र देशे देहस्य अंतर्धानम् अन्यत्र देशे त्यागत्वेन लोके ज्ञापनम् इति योगिभिर्दुष्करम् इत्यर्थः. In one place to give up a body, another place to give up that entire place, informing them, it does not help the yogis to understand this. They find it difficult. Pashunam iti bhakta abhavat iti bhavah. Pashunam, beasts. How can beasts understand this? Because they are not devotees at all. Viklava atmanam evam kartum vyakula manasam atmanam swam. And then there were those whose minds were very, very disturbed, so they cannot understand the reality pertaining to themselves. Okay. Vidura was overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love. When he understood that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thought of him at the last moment. Although Vidura thought of himself as insignificant, he was remembered by the Lord by his causeless mercy. Vidura accepted this as a great favor, and thus he cried. This crying is the last word in the progressive path of devotion service. One who can cry for the Lord in love is certainly successful in the line of devotion service. 36. Kalindya कतिभिः सिद्ध अहोभिर् भरतर्षभ प्रापद्यत स्वः सरितं यत्र मित्रासुतो मुनिः कालिन्द्याः कतिभिः सिद्धे अहोभिः भरतर्षभ प्रापद्यत स्वः सरितं yatra mitrasutah munih. After passing a few days on the bank of the river Yamuna, Vidura, self-realized soul, reached the bank of the Ganges, where the great sage Maitreya was situated. Mitrasutah, Maitreya. Oh, something is here. There's a question here. Yes.
Prabhu, I have two questions. One is in the purport of 30, verse number 32, when it was written that Lord appeared on this earth for 100 years. So that 100 years is just an indication because
125. 125. Clearly says, Vishnu Chakravarti says 125.
okay. And in the 34th verse, when this strong term is used, like condemning materialists as beasts, so what is the reason that such hard language is used? Because when we inform them or when we read ourselves, is it for us that we should not become like that beast? Because when others will hear, they might feel bad. They feel bad actually that we are termed as beasts or
First of all,
rascals.
talking to non-devotees, you are supposed to preach Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavatam is for devotees. Chaitanya Charitamrita is for pure devotees. So there are particular textbooks that are meant for particular purposes. Bhagavad Gita also Krishna says, Navam dushkritano mudha prapadyante naradhama mayapa hritagyana asuram bhavamashita. So that we should be able to help people understand why Krishna is speaking like that and why the acharyas also accept it. Bhagavatam does say that those who don't surrender unto Krishna are animals. Shva vid barahoshva kharai samstuta pashubi. Comes there. Second canto we saw. Okay.
Okay.
Swami Kalindya Sakashat Siddha Eva Viduraha Katipayaihi Dinaihi Swasaritam Gangam Prapadyate Praptaha Kalindya Sakashat Katibhi Ahobi Siddhe Nishpanne Sati Bhavektaha Katishaha Suvritteshu Satsu Ityartha Swasaritam Gangam Prapadyata Praptaha इति सारार्थदर्शिन्यां हर्षिण्यां भक्तचेतसां तृतीयेऽत्र चतुर्थोऽपि सङ्गतः सङ्गतः सताम्. Chapter 5. Vidura talks with Maitreya. 1. Sri Shukovacha. द्वारिद्युनद्या ऋषभः कुरूणां मैत्रेयमासीनमगाध बोधम् क्षत्तोपसृत्याच्युतभावसिद्धः प्रप्रच्छ सौशील्य गुणाभितृप्तः. Shukadeva Goswami said, Vidura, the best amongst the Kuru dynasty, who was perfect in devotion service to the Lord, thus reached the source of the celestial Ganges river, Haridwar, where Maitreya, the great fathomless learned sage of the world, was seated. Vidura, who was perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence, inquired from him. उक्तश्चतुर्भिरध्यायै क्षत्तुर्मैत्रेय संगमः संवादस्तु तयोस्कन्धद्वयेनाथ निगद्यते. So in 4 chapters, the events that led to the meeting of Kshatta or Vidura and Maitreya have been brought out. Now, their conversation, which will span 2 cantos, will be is being described. Dyunadya Gangaya Dwari Haridware Asinam Natu Karma Vyagram. Maitreya was not busy in various material duties. He was at Haridwar, sitting in Haridwar. Tatra hetuha agadhaha aparichinnaha bodhaha yasya iti. The reason for why he was not so busy was because he was satisfied in transcendence. He had unlimited knowledge, unfathomed knowledge. See, you can see Maitreyam Asinam Agadha Bodham of unfathomed knowledge. Maitreyasya Saushilyam Arjavadi Gunascha Karunadayaha Taihi Abhitruptaha Gunabhitruptaha. Vidura was satisfied with Maitreya's good character. That means his straightforwardness, etc., and his qualities such as compassion and so on. Pathantre Kshattuhu Saushilyaadhir Avitriptam Santushtam Maitreyam. There's a variant reading in which it is pointed out that Maitreya was very satisfied with Shattas or Vidura's good qualities and so on. Kramasandarva. Shilyam suswabhavaha. Tat pradhana gunaha taihi taptaha mana adi ichharahitaha. Vidura was very happy that Maitreya had all these very good qualities which indicated highly excellent character. So he was very satisfied. In other words, he was not hankering for honor and so on. Pathantare, and in the alternate reading, Kshattuhu Saushilya Adhivir Avitriptam Santushtam Maitreya. In the alternate reading, Maitreya was satisfied with Vidura's good qualities and so on. Chakravarti. Panchame Jagata Srishtyaadya Prichat Sukhadukhinaha Chatra Pratyaha Maitreya Sargam Tatvaistavam Re Bhangya Chaturbhiradhyaye Ashayasyanginah Stitim Utva Dangeshu Topi Sargasa Vyasam Uchyate. In the 5th chapter, he asks about the creation and similar topics pertaining to the universe. He asks about the happy and unhappy population in the universe. And then Maitreya responds to, he's the one who asks, Vidura asks. Then there are also other topics. The creation of the tattvas, that means the elements, and their prayers to Lord Hari. Indirectly, the 4 chapters talk about elements of the shelter. And even though creation has been presented as one of the many elements, details of it are now presented. Dyunadya Gangaya Dwari Haridware Asinam Natu Karya Vyagram. So he approached, Vidura approached Maitreya when Maitreya was not very busy. Prathamanta Pathe Maitreyasya Saushilya Gunai Santushtaha Dvitiyanta Pathe Vidurasya. We already saw that. Chaitanya Charitamrita is set for pure devotees. So devotees can't see it or read it. No, they can see it, read it, but it is primarily meant for those who are already pure devotees. Just like Bhagavatam, it is primarily meant for those who have surrendered to Krishna. Bhagavad Gita ends with surrender. Bhagavatam starts with surrender and ends with pure chanting of the holy names. So Chaitanya Charitamrita is for those who have surrendered and whose chanting is already pure. So there are particular levels. Vidura was already perfect due to his unalloyed devotion to the infallible Lord. The Lord and the living entities are all qualitatively the same by nature. But the Lord is quantitatively much greater than any individual living entity. He is ever infallible, whereas the living entities are prone to fall under the illusory energy. Vidura had already surpassed the fallible nature of the living entity in conditional life due to his being Achyuta Bhava, or legitimately absorbed in the devotion service of the Lord. This stage of life is called Achyuta Bhava Siddha, or perfection by dint of devotion service. Anyone, therefore, who is absorbed in the devotion service of the Lord is a liberated soul and has all admirable qualities. The learned sage Maitreya was sitting in a solitary place on the bank of the Ganges at Haridwar, and Vidura, who was a perfect devotee of the Lord and possessed all good transcendental qualities, approached him for inquiry. 2. Vidura Sukhaaya karmani karoti loko na tai sukham vanyad va binded bhuyas tateva dukkham yadatra yuktam bhagavan vadenna. Vidura said, O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither satiation nor the mitigation of distress. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. Please, therefore, give us directions on how one should live for real happiness. Prashnanevaha sukhaya iti panchandashabhihi. And then Vidura's questions are brought out in 15 verses. Tai karmabhi sukham va anyasya sukhasya upashamam va ityartha अथवा अन्यद्वा न विन्देत किं तत् इति अपेक्षायां तस्यैव निर्देशः उपारमं वा इति ततः तैः कर्मभिः भूयः पुनः पुनः दुःखमेव विन्देत. So despite engaging in engagements of happiness, that happiness comes to an end. And despite his endeavors, he attains distress. अत्र एवं विधे संसारे नः अस्माकं यद् युक्तं कर्तुं योग्यं तत् सर्वज्ञः भगवान् वदेत् निरूपयतु. So you know everything. So since this is the nature of samsara or material existence, please tell us, O powerful one. Jiva Goswami. यद्यपि विदुरः श्रीभगवदिष्टज्ञानं श्रोतुम् अभीष्टवान् पृष्टवांश्च श्रीमदुद्धवं प्रति पूर्वं श्रीमद् उद्धवेन च श्री मैत्रेयं प्रति प्रष्टुं श्री भगवद आज्ञा अनुसारेण उपदिष्टः तथापि तं प्रति तम् अनुपृष्टवांस् तत् खलु श्रीमद् उद्धव विषयक प्रश्नानन्तरं जातेन दैन्य स्वभावेन एव. So even though Vidura, he had a desire to hear about that knowledge which is most dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he did ask about that to Sriman Uddhava in the past. And Sriman Uddhava had instructed him in line with the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to inquire about these subjects from Sri Maitreya. He did ask this at a later point in time, but after asking questions related to Uddhava, after asking questions to Uddhava, he had become one of extremely humble character. Dainyam cha श्री भगवता स्वप्रतिनिधि रूप उद्धव द्वारा अनुपदेशेन आत्मनि न अति योग्यता मननात्. And that humility was because Uddhava was the very direct representative of Sri Bhagavan, and he was not directly instructed by Uddhava. So he considered himself to be extremely unqualified. Sri Bhagavaamstu tasya Srimad Uddhava Chatushloki Matrena Manah Prakasha Abhavam तथा बहुंश्च पृष्ठव्यानर्थान् विज्ञाय तावत् संवाद निर्विण्णेन तेन तत् न उपदिदेश किन्तु तत्र योग्येन मैत्रेयेण एवेति. So now through a description of only Chatushloki from Sri Uddhava, it was only a reference to that also. He did not receive a complete revelation. So he did indicate that there are several questions, but that conversation had ended and he was not given instructions. And he was told that he should take instruction from Maitreya, who was fit for it. Tasmad Atmani tad jnana yogyatva apadana sadhanaya eva sa nivedeti sukhaya iti. So in order to become qualified to receive that knowledge pertaining to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he humbly submits three verses, beginning with the current verse. Tatra atmanah sadharanyaya lokamatrasya dausthyam prathamena tadrishyam vina anyashraya rahityam dvitiyena abhishta prarthanam tritiyena kyeyam. So in that way, he talks about, he speaks three verses. In the first one, he talks about everybody in this world being in a bad condition. And in the second verse, he says that they don't have any shelter other than themselves. Then in the third verse, he prays for what he wants to ask. Atra bhagavadupadishtam rahasyam jnanam uddhavad prapya swasya tatra ayogyatam matva atinirvinna eva viduraha manasi param amarsham. Having received from Uddhava knowledge that is of a confidential nature as taught by Bhagavan, and having considered that he is actually unqualified to receive elaboration about this, being very much in distress, with a thought in his mind, he deliberated on the subject in his mind. Tasya anuraktasya muneha mukunda pramoda bhara natagandharasya ashrinvato maam anuragahasa samikshaya vishramayanduvachetyot uddhavukte. This is based on a statement that Uddhava had made, that the Lord spoke specifically to me, Lord Mukunda. Paramantaranga swabhakta chudamanim uddhavameva bhagavan rahasyam swajnanam upadidesha na tu shrunvanto api. So the impression that arises as Uddhava, who is the crest jewel of the Supreme Lord's most intimate internal devotees, he was the one to whom Bhagavan had given confidential knowledge about himself. Not to Maitreya, who was actually hearing. Maevam. But that is not the case. Tadaham tad jnanartham imam ajanantam mahanubhavam prathamam na prarthayishyan kintu swajigyasatameva yat kinchit prichhami. So I will not ask about that knowledge. Rather, I'll ask this great soul, first of all, uh, something I will ask. I'll just ask him something which is commonly a subject of inquiry. यदि च तत् अयं जानाति तथा भो विदुर त्वद् अर्थं भगवता हमादिष्ट भगवत् प्रोक्तं तस्य अजत्व जन्मत्वादि विरोध परिहारकम् अतिर्हस्य ज्ञानं त्वं गृहाण इति स्वयमेव वक्ष्यति इति अत आह सुखाय इत्यादि. So what Vidura was thinking was that if he can answer these questions, if he knows the answers to these questions, then he himself would tell me, "Oh Vidura, for it is for your sake that Bhagavan had instructed me, and the topics taught by Bhagavan pertained to removing the contradictions of him having a birth, and so on. This is most confidential knowledge. Please accept this." He himself would tell me this. With this in mind, he asked these questions. तैः कर्मभिः सुखम वा अन्य दुख उपशमनम वा uparamam vairagyam va na vindeta. People engage in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but neither they get satiation nor is their distress mitigated. किंतु भूय भूय कृतेभ्य तेभ्य कर्मभ्य दुखमेव. Again and again and again they engage in these activities and they only attain distress. अत्र प्रश्ने यद् युक्तं तद उत्तरं नः अस्मान् वदतु भवान्. Please, Your Grace, answer this question. It's 9 o'clock. I think we should stop here now. I just put a note that next session is supposed to begin with 3.5.2 purport. 2 purport. Okay. We'll stop with that. Next time, I think I should just do this. I should just use the tablet. That's all. Simple way. Okay, so tomorrow is Sunday. Is it not? Am I? No. When is the next session? I'm in complete confusion here. 3.4.30. 3.5.2. Okay, fine. Tomorrow will be a holiday Sunday, 131 session. Session number 131 is on 2nd of June. There will be 2 review sessions next week. Pandav Nirjala Ekadashi is on Saturday. Assessment for Unit 8 will be on 8th of June. Okay, fine. पांचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो